Ringers rejoice. The Rings of Power Season 2 is just the tip of the spear. Amazon's Tolkien series will have 5 seasons, each worth a dwarven mine's worth of gold. Season 1 ended fantastically, but here's some of the flame of Anor-sized burning questions. Why do the Rings of Power's witches look like Ringwraiths when vanquished? And with the show teasing several characters who could potentially be future Ringwraiths, let's talk Nazgûl candidates. The witches made their appearance over halfway through Season 1. Fans were left guessing who the 3 cloaked witches were, with many believing they were connected to Sauron. In the J.R.R. Tolkien adaptation, the Dweller, the Ascetic, and the Nomad appear in Episode 5 of the Second Age. The trio showed up at a meteor crash site, wearing long white gowns and ornate silver armor, where the stranger fell from the sky in a ball of fire. Speculation mounted that the 3 witches could be members of a cult group called the Mystics, who would eventually join together to create Sauron. Could they each represent one of the 3 parts of Sauron to be united in the end? However, some think that the trio could be a reference to the Blue Wizards in Tolkien's text. Still, the question remains, why do the Rings of Power's witches look like Ringwraiths when vanquished? Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power co-showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay are on hand to help fans understand exactly that. They have also hinted that the 3 witches may not have been defeated by the stranger after all. In a Vanity Fair interview, Payne and McKay respond to questions about the 3 witches, their resemblance to the Ringwraiths, and whether they were actually killed at the end of Season 1. You're seeing what's underneath the form they present, Payne said of the skeletal forms taken by the 3 witches before they dissipate. Were they defeated, or were they just temporarily vanquished? I think that's a story point that people can consider. McKay also cited the similarities between that scene and scenes from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, noting that when Frodo puts on the One Ring for the first time, he sees Ringwraiths glowing in a similar fashion. During the Rings of Power Season 1 finale, the stranger meets the mysterious trio who believe that the Meteor Man is Lord Sauron. After Nori and the Harfoot steal the leader's magical staff, the stranger uses it to banish them to outer darkness. In a brief moment, the stranger's blindingly intense Ishtar light illuminates the 3 witches as spectral figures reminiscent of the unseen realm, a visual that many viewers interpreted as a callback to the scene from Lord of the Rings. When asked to explain it, Rings of Power showrunners said it was intentional and that the vanquished witches provide a window into the unseen world. The witches' visual storytelling suggests that they are lesser conjurers than one of the wizards would be, and they are bested here, but they escape in another form. Their true appearance in the world of the unseen is hideous, but some kind of mystical enchantment is making them beautiful. One thing we do know is that they come from Rune, and we know there are magic cults in Rune, which is one of the things Tolkien wrote about. So maybe there's a slightly different kind of magic, and we can unravel the mystery in future seasons. Payne's statement that the witches were just temporarily vanquished instead of killed indicates that they might reappear in Rings of Power Season 2. In his writings, J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't offer much information about Rune or the witches of that region, which gives the writers of Rings of Power freedom to develop them however they please, potentially as wraith-like followers of Sauron who were predecessors to Nazgûl. This explains why when the witches from the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, are vanquished, they look remarkably similar to Ringwraiths. As we know, the Rings of Power is set during the Second Age, when the Nazgûl have not yet been created. But because the TV adaptation's timeline condenses Tolkien's lore, it's very likely that characters who are currently appearing in the Rings of Power Season 1 could be among Sauron's 9. Rumors are rife as to who may or may not be fated to dress in black for the next 3 millennia. But then there are actually more Ringwraith candidates in the Rings of Power than one might think. Middle-earth has a rich cast of characters. Heroes like Gandalf, Aragorn, and Éowyn are always ready to fight against baddies like Saruman. The Nazgûl are coming to collect in the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. Stay put, we're about to check out every character who might fall under Sauron's sway. The Nazgûl, known to their friends as Ringwraiths, are an elite group of 9 ghostly villains doing Sauron's bidding, and their existence dates back to Middle-earth's Second Age, when the One Ring was initially forged. In Sauron's bid to dominate Middle-earth, he gave 9 of the magic rings created in Eregion to mortal men. Over time, these rings sapped away their owners' souls until they became Ringwraiths. walking between the mortal realm and shadow. Sauron's Ringwraiths are given longevity and strength, but they are absolutely subservient to their master. It is never explained what the Nazgûl were before they became wraiths, and none are named except for the Witch King of Angmar and Camel the Easterling. So, as promised, let's investigate every character in the Rings of Power who can become a Ringwraith. Here are the most compelling notional servants of Sauron. Charlie Vickers' Halbrand may be the most noticeable candidate for the position of Ringwraith. Halbrand is revealed to be the rightful ruler of the Southlands, so he immediately satisfies Sauron's high-status entry requirement. Halbrand also displays a dark side, as shown when he lets his fellow raft riders die, beats up some Númenóreans who probably had it coming, and plays Galadriel off against Pharazôn. His loose morals lead him halfway to earning his Ringwraith credentials. Could Halbrand be tempted by the Ring of Power? He certainly seems desperate and arrogant enough to accept it. We'd love to know what you think. The Rings of Power tells the tale of Anarion, a mysterious character who is estranged from his family and preoccupied with Western Númenor. This obsession upsets his father Elendil greatly. In Tolkien's original chronology, the Nazgûl were created hundreds of years before Anarion was even born, but the Rings of Power is squeezing Middle-earth's timeline right up, so Anarion immediately becomes a potential Ringwraith. He is not as important to the last alliance as Elendil and his brother Isildur, so he could die before they do, leaving Sauron an opening to corrupt Anarion by exploiting the ill feeling within his family. Plus, as the son of Elendil, he's a lord. The next candidate was created specifically for the prequel, so is one of the few characters who could find themselves removed from the story at any time, making her a perfect future Ringwraith. Arryn is the sister of Isildur and Anarion, who is often forced to play peacekeeper between her brothers and Elendil. It would certainly spice up the last alliance of elves and men if Arryn were to inherit a Ring of Power and transform into a corrupted Nazgûl, giving Elendil, Isildur, and Anarion a more personal motivation to despise Sauron. Though Tolkien does specify that the trio of Númenor Ringwraiths are all lords rather than ladies, the Rings of Power proudly makes Middle-earth a more inclusive landscape, so we won't take her off our list of potentials just yet. A young Theo has also already started his campaign to become a Ringwraith. Though not a king or of high status, he is still in the running. It can help us to remember that Tolkien writes more about how the 9 lucky winners became powerful, wealthy, and glorious after receiving their Rings of Power. Theo has already unearthed a dark blade forged by Sauron and offered his blood to it, but despite the weapon's potentially just being a hallmark of teenage angst, this blade seems to be nurturing inner darkness within Bronwyn's son. As he reawoke Sauron's blade, Theo might have earned himself a Ring of Power from his new master. The next candidate was seemingly added to the story primarily as a love interest for Arryn, but the Rings of Power surely doesn't have time for youthful romance. Can we interpret that the character was added for a different reason entirely, maybe to become a Ringwraith? Keeman is an agreeable noble and the son of an acerbic, disagreeable Pharazôn. As a descendant of Pharazôn, Keeman fits J.R.R. Tolkien's statement that Númenórean Ringwraiths were once lords. Sauron's favorite acolyte in Tolkien's source material is Pharazôn, and so for the kinder Keeman to become a loyal Ringwraith as a means of punishing Pharazôn does have a certain poetic justice to it. Moral, ethical, and optimistic to a fault, it's almost impossible to see how or why the next candidate might wear a Ring of Power and become one of Sauron's Nazgûl. We did say almost, with all signs pointing to Theo's growing rage causing him to become bad. What a twist it would be if the wholesome Bronwyn took his place instead. Bronwyn would go to any lengths for her son Theo, therefore it's certain that she'd do anything to lift the curse of the dark, magical sword placed on him. A Ring of Power might be the only weapon in Middle-earth capable of such a feat. We'd love to know who you think has the most potential to become a Ringwraith. Be sure to let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more.